Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the American Academy of Pediatrics and HealthyChildren.org, the official AAP website for parents. We'll be discussing your role in your child's healthy weight. We've got a few pieces of housekeeping before we begin. The audio for today's event will come through your computer speakers. Be sure they're turned on and the volume is turned up. We will have time for a question and answer session at the end. To ask a question, please use the chat feature located on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You can send your questions in at any time. I would now like to introduce our host for this afternoon, Dr. Sandra G. Hassink. Dr. Hassink is a pediatrician and leading expert on childhood obesity. She has spent her career caring for children with obesity and their families at the weight management clinic she founded at Nemours DuPont Hospital for Children. She is currently the medical director of the American Academy of Pediatrics Institute for Healthy Child Weight, and she is the author of the new book, Achieving a Healthy Weight for Your Child, an Action Plan for Families. By registering for this webinar, you've been entered for a chance to win a free copy of Dr. Hassink's book. Dr. Hassink, I'll turn the microphone over to you now.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for joining me today. If you're here because you are concerned about your child's weight, you aren't alone. Let's go to our first slide. 1 in 3 children aged 2 to 19 have overweight or obesity. Overweight is defined as a BMI or body mass index at or above the 85th percentile and below the 95th percentile for children of the same age and sex. Obesity is defined as a BMI at or above the 95th percentile for children of the same sex and age. We've also listed the web address for the CDC's online BMI calculator. You just need to enter your child's height and weight into the calculator, and it will tell you their BMI. Next slide, please. Childhood obesity is a crisis for our country, but closer to home, it can be an overwhelming challenge for your family. And I'm here to tell you that you can be successful in helping your child achieve and maintain a healthy weight. Today, we're going to focus on your part in that success. Next slide, please. As parents and caregivers, you play a critical role in your child's weight. As important as proper nutrition and physical activity are in weight loss, the chances of your child's long-term success are limited without the sound parenting skills that you have. Many of the same skills apply regardless of your child's age or the severity of their weight challenges. Next slide. There are many resources for you to learn about proper nutrition and fitness for your family, including HealthyChildren.org. But as a parent, you can best help your child by taking a holistic approach. Today, we'll look at 3 significant ways you as a parent can help your child achieve a healthy weight. Next slide. Understand your parenting style and past relationship with food to help your family move forward in a healthy direction. 2, focus on the overall health of your whole family, not just the weight of one child. And 3, create a structure for your family to succeed. First, we'll look at ways you can assess your parenting style and your past relationship with food. Next slide. The following slides have a series of questions. By answering them thoughtfully and discussing the answers with your spouse or co-parent, you may gain insights into your current thinking about your child's food intake and the issue of obesity. When you were growing up, did your family life tend to revolve around food and meals? Did you have overweight or did you have obesity as a child? If yes, do you think your excess weight changed your life in any major way? And if so, how? Did you often try to lose weight as a child? Were those efforts successful? Were they ever a source of conflict between you and your parents? During your childhood, did your parents sometimes use food as a reward, a bribe, or a source of comfort? Were you physically active with regularity as a child? In school, outside of school, in youth sports, for example, in soccer or Little League? If you could change anything about your childhood as it relates to the issues mentioned here, what would you change? And how do you think your own childhood experiences with food and physical activity influence the way you're raising your own child today? That's a lot to think about. But by sharing and thinking about the experiences of your own childhood, you may better understand some of the issues that have arisen in your family life today. Next slide. Just as we've examined your emotions surrounding food, it's important to recognize that your child may eat in response to emotions and feelings. One of your biggest parenting challenges is for you and your child to determine whether she's eating for the right reasons. Ask yourself questions like, does she eat at times other than regular meal times and snacks? Is she munching at every opportunity? What factors might be contributing to his overeating that call for you to intervene? Next slide. This is also an opportunity to look at your own parenting behavior. Are you using food as a reward? You might want to think about healthier ways to offer praise and rewards, like verbal praise or spending time together. Next slide. If you've had a complicated relationship with food, or you had overweight or obesity as a child yourself, it may be hard to put food in perspective. You may feel you'll do whatever it takes to help your child avoid the pain you've experienced. Remember, though, there's more to your child's life than what he's eating and how much he weighs. Next slide. Now that you've learned a little bit about yourself, you're ready to take action. But remember our second key point. Focus on the overall health of your family, not just the weight of one child. Every decision you make about healthy eating and activity, screen time and sleeping is a health decision. And remember that improving your child's health is your ultimate goal. Next slide. Obesity is a threat to your child's health, increasing her risk of developing a long list of serious illnesses, including high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, elevated triglyceride levels, liver problems, asthma, and gallstones. You can't be passive when your child's health is at stake. By making the right decisions now, you'll be affecting her well-being far into the future. Next slide. But imagine your child sitting on the couch along with the entire family, watching a movie. But while everyone else is munching on cookies in front of the TV, he's trying to restrain himself from reaching for a handful of his own. It's a bit of torture, and it's setting him up for failure. Without a doubt, it's much easier to make changes when those around you are adopting the same new behaviors as you. Your child's success in achieving a healthy weight is dependent on the support of the entire family, parents, partners, siblings, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and anyone else who spends time with her. At every opportunity, your family needs to demonstrate support for your child. You'll need to be consistent in approaching your child's struggle with obesity because you have the primary responsibility for managing her nutrition, physical activity, screen time, and sleep. If you're separated or divorced from your child's other parent, it's important to try to share information with your former spouse or partner on an ongoing basis and to work toward mutually deciding on any changes in the environment that need to be made at each of your respective homes. Next slide. When you approach a healthy lifestyle as a family, it is still important to recognize that each child has different needs. The goals for diet and physical activity should be different for a 10-year-old than a 5-year-old, taking into account their different developmental stages, ages, and sizes. Your children, however, may not see it that way. At the dinner table, your 5-year-old daughter may say that she wants to eat the same amount of food as her older sister. You need to explain that their ages and stages are different. Yes, you will treat them with equality, but that doesn't mean that they'll receive equal portion sizes or that you'll challenge them to exercise in exactly the same way. Paying attention to each individual child's needs for the right size nutrition and activity is more easily done at home than when you eat out. That's why, when weight loss is the goal for one or more family members, consider eating most of your meals at home, where you'll have better control of the amounts of food that end up on everyone's plates. Next slide. When your family eats dinner together, you can prepare the same foods for everyone, perhaps giving all the children servings of chicken, vegetables, and potatoes, along with a glass of milk. You shouldn't be serving your 8-year-old and 4-year-old identical portion sizes, though. The portions on their plates should be age appropriate. And you can see some examples of portion sizes that differ with age on this slide. Next slide. Finally, we've reached the third essential task you as a parent need to undertake, creating the structure for your family to succeed. Where should you begin? a good starting point is right at home. That means taking charge of the family's day-to-day environment and creating the conditions for change to take place with minimal conflict or confrontation. It means eliminating as many temptations as possible, but giving your child choices when you can. On the next slide, you'll see some examples. You can provide the play equipment, and he can decide whether to jump rope or throw a ball against the garage door. You can invite him to help prepare his lunch and then let him choose from among several healthy entrees that you can make together. You can keep tempting high-calorie snack foods like cookies and candy bars out of your grocery basket, and instead let him choose from among healthy alternatives to stock your kitchen cupboard. Whatever your child decides to do, you will want to monitor the situation consistently. Don't assume that when they reach a certain age, they'll know what to do to stay active, or that they'll instinctively choose a healthier snack over a less healthy one. They will continue to need your guidance. Next slide. Another important thing you can do as a parent is to institute structured eating, not only for your child who may be struggling with weight issues, but for the entire family. In general, children should have 3 meals and 1 to 2 snacks a day without any meal skipping. If your child skips a meal, she'll become overly hungry and set herself up for overeating. And if she knows dinner is always served at 6, she'll be less likely to grab a snack at 5:30 than she would be if dinner was served at a different time every night. As often as possible, meals should be eaten as a family without TVs or other screens present. Use meals as an opportunity to teach your children about health, balanced meals, and appropriate portion sizes. This is also your chance to serve as a role model for healthy eating. As you create this structure, beware the weekend. Saturdays and Sundays need to be as carefully planned as the rest of the week. Next slide. If your child is determined to lose weight, have the two of you discussed a weight loss strategy? No matter how ambitious the goal, it's important that you encourage him to set some short-term goals that he can reach along the way and will keep him motivated to stay the course. Guide your child toward deciding what he wants to achieve, and then help him get there in small steps. If he needs to spend more time being physically active, perhaps start with just a few minutes of outdoor play after school and build on that. See yourself as a parental support system. Help your child set short-term goals and make small changes that can add up to big improvements. If those goals involve reducing his time in front of the TV and becoming more physically active, they'll become an important way for the entire family to move a step closer to a healthier lifestyle. Next slide. Without a doubt, you know your child best, so it's important to structure a customized plan that works for your family. If your child overdoes the afternoon snacking when she gets home from school, maybe you need to limit the time she has available for indulging in these munchies, in addition to providing and maintaining the healthiest possible nutritional environment at home. Keep her attention directed elsewhere, perhaps by having her play outside with friends immediately after school, or getting her involved in an after-school activity. Not surprisingly, your parental interventions will evolve as your child gets older. You can't expect the same approaches that worked when she was 8 years old to still work at 14 years old. As a teenager, if she'd prefer to sit at the computer for hours after school exchanging instant messages with her friends and eating all the while, you're not going to necessarily be able to send her outside the neighborhood playground with swings and monkey bars. But you can explore other activities that will keep her busy. How about encouraging your adolescent to volunteer at the public library by helping out the preschooler story hour? Or encourage her to sign up for an ice skating class or tennis lessons. Or maybe she can try out for the school softball team. In virtually every community, there are plenty of healthy after-school options. Next slide. It's also important to create a network of allies, including family and friends your children may spend mealtimes with. Part of your parenting responsibility is to let the other adults in your child's life, like school teachers, church leaders, scoutmasters, and relatives, know about your child's efforts so they won't undermine them. All it takes are a few acts of sabotage, however innocent or unintentional, to tip your child in the wrong direction and derail weeks of her best effort. Next slide. And remember that you have access to expert advice and support from your child's pediatrician. Partnering with your child's pediatrician is an important aspect of helping your child succeed. Each time you visit the pediatrician's office, particularly for scheduled checkups, your doctor or nurse will weigh and measure your child and calculate her body mass index. He or she will check your child's overall health status and monitor any obesity-related health conditions she may have, such as high blood pressure or high cholesterol levels. Your pediatrician can also talk with your child about his weight problem at a level appropriate for his age. The doctor can help you and your child prioritize the changes that need to be made first to get his weight under control and help you set some health goals, including lifestyle changes, such as eating more healthfully, becoming more physically active, and watching less TV. Next slide, please. Now, no matter how committed you and your child are to this journey, challenges may arise along the way. One common setback is sneaking food. Your child may start eating food without your knowledge at home, at friends' houses, or when he has money purchasing his own. Your child may truly want to lose weight and yet still be sneaking food. He may be feeling anxious, bored, sad, or lonely, and interpret these emotions as hunger. If you notice unexplained dishes in his bedroom or candy wrappers in the trash, raise the issue with your child. Without being accusatory or angry, tell your child you've noticed that she sometimes eats in her room. Explain that you're aware of his behavior and point out that it's counterproductive to his weight loss goals. Then agree to help him work on the problem. Encourage your child to ask you for food when he wants it and explain you'll help him make good nutritional decisions. When your child begins asking you for food, reward him for doing so. For younger children, a sticker or extra bedtime story are good ideas. For older children, let them accumulate points toward an afternoon at the skating rink or other fun activity. Another common challenge is an obvious one, your child's hunger. The structured eating we discussed earlier should help this, but if your child is used to snacking, especially after school, hunger can be an issue. Remember that children should have no more than two snacks a day. Steer your child toward a healthy snack like carrot sticks, a cup of light microwave popcorn, or a cup of vegetable soup. Make sure your child isn't just snacking out of boredom or anxiety and mistaking that for hunger. Encourage your child to take part in deciding whether or not she is really hungry. Ask her, what could you do besides eat when you think you're hungry? Your child may be able to give you some great suggestions, but you could also help her think of ideas like walking the dog, planting a flower in the garden, or kicking a soccer ball. Finally, any celebrations or events outside the healthy routine you've established in your family can be challenging. Vacations, holidays, and family gatherings may be potential pitfalls. Try to plan ahead. Can you schedule some physical activity during your vacation, like walking through the amusement park or swimming in the hotel pool? On holidays and special occasions, don't lose sight of what your child is eating. You don't want to deprive your child, but take care to celebrate the special day, not the whole month. This is a particular risk from Thanksgiving to New Year, so approach this time with extra care. At birthday parties, he can certainly have some cake, but remind him to take only one serving. On Halloween, let your child trick or treat, but then suggest that she sell the candy back to you for a pre-negotiated amount. She'll get a few dollars, and you can dispose of the candy. Next slide. When you encounter these examples or any other challenges, it helps to stay positive and think of them as minor stumbling blocks, not a reason to give up. Help your child learn that all or nothing thinking gets in the way of making changes and can lead to a pattern of restriction and overindulgence that not only doesn't feel good, but reinforces negative eating and activity patterns. Focus on what's going right and remember all of the other aspects of your child's life. As we discussed previously, keep things in perspective. Your child's life involves much more than his weight. Next slide, please. When you encounter one of these setbacks or detours, there are steps to help get back on track. First, acknowledge that a setback has occurred or is in progress. As your child stopped playing outdoors, as the family started eating at fast food restaurants more often than usual. Second, evaluate what is going wrong. Even if it seems obvious, it may help to write down what your child is eating and his activity level. This can help identify the specific problem and why is it taking place. For example, are the setbacks occurring when grandma comes for a visit? Does she bring sweets with her that aren't ordinarily available in your home? Or did your child go out for pizza or fast food 3 times last week, even though the family has been trying to stick to a once-a-week limit? Thirdly, once you know what the challenge is, you can reverse course and return to the positive changes in nutrition and activity. For example, talk with grandma and suggest that when she visits, she can give her grandchildren non-food items from now on. If you've backtracked from your commitment to cut down fast food, can you do an immediate about-face and return to healthier eating? Finally, it's not unusual for these challenges to pop up more than once. You need to remain vigilant. Keep monitoring your child and family's progress in the weeks and months ahead. Make sure your family doesn't fall back into old habits that could undermine all the positive efforts to date. Next slide. I know that this was a lot of information, but if you take away just one thing, remember that your child's efforts to lose weight are like a journey. At times, it might seem like the results you're seeking are far off in the distance. As an adult and a parent, you are the person who needs to make sure that your child and entire family stay the course. You are the captain of the ship that is helping your child navigate and surmount the challenges that are ahead. You are the agent for change and role model for healthy decision-making that can guide your child's own decision-making as she grows into an independent adult.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassink. I know I learned a lot I can use in my own family. We've got some time for questions now. If you haven't already done so, please use the chat window in the lower left-hand corner of your screen to send questions to Dr. Hassink. She will try to respond to the questions in the order they arrive. However, she may not be able to answer all questions. While you submit your questions, I'd just like to remind you that you're invited to register on healthychildren.org to receive our twice-monthly e-newsletter, a personalized homepage, and special offers. And don't forget to follow healthychildren.org on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Okay, we're ready to get to some of your questions. Thank you, Dr. Hassink, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. One of the questions is a very important one, and the question is, my son is being teased at school because of his weight. Do you have any advice on dealing with bullying? Weight bias and stigma are very common. They're common at school with peers and unfortunately also common in families. If your child is being bullied at school, remember that schools have anti-bullying policies. So it's good to check with your teacher or the school principal about what is the anti-bullying policy and how is it being affected in your school. If your child is being bullied at school, it's also important to understand what his or her peer groups are. Often, getting the child engaged in outside of school activities or other peer groups that are empowering can have a positive effect on their self-esteem. Working with the teacher and the principal on a strategy to deal with the bullying in school is the best approach. This alerts the teacher to what is happening. It allows the school to trigger its anti-bullying policy, and it gives your child the support they need. The next question we have is, what can I do if my child eats a healthy snack or meal and still feels hungry afterward and complains they don't want veggies or fruit? I think when your child eats a healthy snack, and remember the adage, the parent provides and the child decides. So your role as a parent is to provide healthy food in proper portions. Your child decides what of that food to eat. But if your child eats the whole snack and is still hungry, you can think of a couple things. One, did they come to the snack extra hungry because they skipped a meal? So you can then address the prior meal. Two, what did they eat at the prior meal? Did they cherry pick some food and not get enough of a well-balanced meal or possibly enough protein? Then you can add more of that food to the snack. Second, were they watching TV or screens while they were eating the snack and they were distracted and don't even realize that they're full? And third, if they've eaten a healthy snack in the proper portions, it's good to take a little break. Try to engage them in some other activity. And if they're still hungry and come back after they've done their other activity, you can then give them another small healthy snack. So there are many strategies to start to deal with when your child is still hungry after a snack. Another question we have is how to deal with all the food deserts in areas where it isn't safe to play outside. And I think this is a really important point. There are two separate points. So to deal with food deserts, Many times when you don't have ready access to healthy food, you have to plan more carefully. It may take 2 bus rides to get to that grocery store and be an effort to get to a place where you can access, family can access healthy food. This means that meal planning and making a shopping list and organizing your trip to the store is more important than ever. But it's still important to get access to the healthy food because this is the ground upon which all your meals and snacks will be based at home. Neighborhoods that aren't safe to play outside, this is where after-school programs, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, can be resources where you're trying to orchestrate safe activity for your child. If you have none of those options and the child needs to stay inside because of the safety of the neighborhood, then exercise videos or games that involve physical activity are some alternatives you can use. Another question is, how do you recommend talking to your child about their weight when they don't recognize it's an issue? I recommend talking to your child about health. And as you noticed in my talk, every time you go to a pediatrician with your child for a well checkup, the pediatrician will be plotting the height and weight and the BMI on the growth chart. And hopefully you'll be having a discussion with your pediatrician about the importance of healthy growth and healthy nutrition and physical activity. So I think that's to couch that discussion in terms of health, healthy habits. If for an older child, if you have family members in your family history that have had diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease, it's a good discussion to have about why the entire family needs to get healthy. So I would couch this discussion in terms of health for the child, but more importantly for the whole family and how the whole family is making change. That said, you may want to specifically ask your child if they're being teased or bullied about their own weight, because as we discussed before, that really takes some separate attention to deal with weight bias and bullying. What do you suggest as a non-food reward for younger children who are potty training? Additionally, on another topic, is dessert every night considered excessive? The first question is, I think children are, younger children, a sticker chart, a star chart is great for a younger child who's potty training. And I think stickers for the slightly older child could add up to a bigger reward, but often you have great success with a sticker chart and stars and fun stickers on the chart. Dessert every night, I think we have a conception of dessert when we think about it as it has to be something sweet, it has to be a treat. Fruit is a great dessert. Yogurt with fruit is a great dessert. There are desserts that you can have that end the meal that are sweet and healthy. So I think that we just reconceptualize the idea of what makes a dessert and go for healthy as we did for the whole rest of the meal. Let's see. Many children take most of their meals at school. How can we get schools to be partners in these goals? Many of us have spent a lot of time working on healthy school meals, and I think that one way to approach this as a family member is to talk to the wellness committees that schools have about healthy food and not only at meals but snacks at school. Talk to your child and try to understand what is being offered at school, what the choices are. The older child you can coach to make healthy choices at school while you're working with school personnel to see if they can get healthier choices in the school breakfast or lunch menus. Vending options and foods that are sold at sporting events are also another place where if you have a PTA, they might get interested in providing healthier options. Parents always have the option, if they need to, of packing lunch and even breakfast if they really need that healthy meal and they're still working with the school on making healthy choices. Okay. I'm just reading the questions here. How much daily physical activity is recommended for school-age children? At least an hour of moderate to vigorous exercise is recommended for school-age children. And if we really had daily physical education that was active for the whole period, we'd almost be there. So looking at what the physical education requirements are for your school and if how often physical education is occurring. Of course, many schools, especially with older children, have physical education only on alternate semesters, so the exercise has to be made up in a different way. Recess also can contribute to that physical activity if it's an active recess. Again, unfortunately for the older child, sometimes recess is eliminated by the time they get to middle school. The after school time is an important time for children to be active if they have an after school activity or could go outside and play. You have daylight hours and opportunity. So sometimes restructuring their homework schedule so they can have that after school activity time and then do homework is important instead of doing homework and by the time they're done, there's dinner and then they don't have an opportunity to go outside. So outside play, if possible, tends to be a really good opportunity to get in that physical activity. If it's not safe, we can go back to some of these things we discussed about alternative ways to get physical activity. Do you recommend a limit on the amount of fruit a child eats in a day? We go by the mantra of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That's an easy way to start thinking about the amount of fruits and vegetables they have. If they don't like vegetables and you're trying to make that up with fruit, sometimes pairing vegetables in a fruit salad works. So, some carrots with a salad of apples and bananas. You can mix the fruits and vegetables together. You can put fruit in a salad. You can find how the child likes their vegetables cooked or raw with hummus. So, but a good rule of thumb is 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, just to sort of calibrate yourself to see if you're even getting enough fruits and vegetables in during that meal plan during the day. Okay, let me see. So my family is so busy. How do we make time for home-cooked meals and exercise along with job, school, and homework? Well, this is really the dilemma of the 21st century. I think families are incredibly busy. I think it's important to think about dinner. We all have a tendency to think we need that big, hot, home-cooked meal for dinner. If we get home and the children are hungry, and we don't have the time to cook that meal, sometimes we'll defer to ordering out or going out. Remember that during a really busy time, you can make a sandwich and a bowl of soup or salad, have a piece of fruit and a glass of milk, and that's a fine dinner. And you can make it very quickly. You can sit down and enjoy the meal with your children. You can cook ahead and put dinners in the freezer. Sometimes it's good to do that and plan for those stressful times so you have a meal back up in your freezer to use, and make it easy for yourself. Exercise, trying to work as much exercise as you can into your activities of daily living can sometimes be helpful here. So if you're going to the mall, parking far away and walking, doing a lap around the grocery store inside before you start to shop if your children are with you, working out a family activity on the weekend when you do have some time that involves going to a park, to the zoo, to an outside activity. Here is where you really need to get creative and try to work as much activity in your normal daily routine as you can. And no doubt, our busy schedules are part of the reason I think why it is a struggle to get healthy eating and activity routines into our lives. Just a word about screen time here. Screen time can be a magnet for children, and so it's really important to organize and think consciously about the screen time, not letting the TV or the screens just become the default, but having a set time. If you're going to watch a show in the evening, having a set time, turning the TV on and then off, having set times for recreational screen use can also decrease the amount of sedentary time that children have. When we showed you, are these food portion guidelines strictly by age or size? For instance, you might have a 6-year-old that is as tall as an 8-year-old. So here's where you need your, and that refers back to that chart I showed you with the portion sizes by age. Portion sizes are based on, obviously, the size and the rate of growth of the child at certain ages. So if you're not sure what guidelines to follow, here's where your pediatrician can be helpful. But in general, the age guidelines are a good place to start. And if your 8-year-old is tall, and they also, if your 6-year-old is tall and weighs as much as an 8-year-old, then and they're over the 95th percentile for BMI, then you need a plan that really starts to shift the whole diet to healthier eating, slowing that rate of that fast rate of weight gain down and allowing the height to catch up. So when you're not sure about your age-appropriate portion sizes, this is where you need to be looking at the growth chart and working with your pediatrician on how to approach that question. Okay, what are some strategies or advice for getting a child or family member to maintain eating healthy and being physically active when they do not see the importance of being healthy the way you do? So this is really important, especially with children that if you have a family where one child is struggling with weight, other children may not be, or you have grandparents who are involved with the family and they don't see the need. This is where a family meeting is really important. And again, you step back and you look at the health of the entire family. You look at your family history. Most families do have, at least in this country, some people in the family who've had heart disease or high blood pressure or diabetes or joint problems that would make healthy living really important. So I think just gently talking to the family, many parents, many extended family members will make changes on behalf of the child that they wouldn't necessarily make for themselves. So we've had many families when focusing on a child's health, maybe the child does have already some problem with lipids or blood pressure, and these nutrition and activity changes are necessary. Many family members on behalf of the child will go along with the changes. And I think it's also important here to have folks understand how hard it is for a child cannot do this by themselves. And just like the child needs the support of the entire family, the emotional support of the entire family, to be a good student, to when you're trying to teach them how to get along with other children, they need the same kind of support from the entire family for healthy, active living. And to have each adult see that they are a tremendous role model for the child. And children are smart. They know that it's what they watch adults doing that is the message, not necessarily if the adults are doing something different than they're telling the child to do. So again, it's having that discussion with the family. If you're in the situation where your child is at another family member's house or you're divorced and you're not able to have this kind of conversation with the other adults, it's important to keep the structure, keep the balance, keep the healthy eating at your house while teaching the child healthy habits, letting the other person know what you're doing, and setting the example at your house, and keep communications as open as you can, even though you may not get 100% agreement from the other person. So another question is, what's the best time for dinner for a child who eats lunch at 11 a.m.? She just wants to snack when she gets home from school until dinner. Well, I think an after-school snack is normal, and I think that when lunch is early, and we all know that at school lunches can vary from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the school day. So first, make sure she's eating a high-quality lunch with good nutrition, and then when she gets home, giving her a healthy snack, and it should be a balanced snack. So it should have a protein, fruit, vegetable, some carbohydrate, some dairy, and it can look like a mini meal, and that's just fine for an after-school snack. You know, when you hit the door hungry and you don't have a snack ready to eat, it's really easy to go for the quickest snack. If the snack food, the chips and the cookies are there, that's what you're going to go for. So in this situation, it would be good to have that snack ready when she comes home. If you happen to be picking her up at school, you can bring some fruit and a small snack to eat before you ride home in the car, just to get her started. We generally recommend not eating in the car if you can help it, but eating at the table when you can. But having that healthy snack ready and waiting for her when she comes home, or packing a snack if she's in after-school care. But it can look like a little mini meal and have all the food groups there. And when you have that combination of food groups, it's a more satisfying meal. And then remember that dinner, in that case, is best if you have a structured dinner and a specific time for a meal, at 5:30 or 6 or whenever you're going to have it, so she can manage herself until she gets to dinner. Let me see. This is another question. How can you force your child to eat breakfast? My oldest daughter will not eat breakfast, and if she does, she complains about how her stomach hurts because she wasn't hungry enough to eat before school. And I've tried a variety of options. It's important to know the age of the child. There's something that happens as children start to enter puberty, and they start to shift their sleep schedule. So even though they're having to get up early for school, they're not really, their optimum wake-up time may be later in the morning, and therefore they may not be, their hunger also seems to shift. So I think that this is not about forcing breakfast. This is about coming up with a breakfast, a small breakfast that she can easily eat on her way to school if she's often this happens most often with a teenager. So this could be where she gets a bag of granola to eat. It's a little bit to get her started. Then she can take a banana to school if she can eat it when she gets to school and spread it out a little bit. She might want a hard-boiled egg to start with. So this is where you're trying to match her ability to actually eat the breakfast with some healthy food. If the school allows breakfast in the classroom, which many of them do, this can be a good time to give her a little something at home and pack breakfast so she can eat it in the classroom. It's a little bit later. Some adolescents are more likely to eat a little more later into the morning. So the option again is maybe it's not a huge breakfast if she can't eat it, but a little mini meal with the different food groups. Breakfast in the classroom may help you out there. If they're allowed to have a mid-morning snack, you can then supplement it with a mid-morning snack. So this is not about forcing, but kind of working with that shift in the adolescent sleeping and eating patterns to help her have something to go on. We know the data is very good that breakfast does promote better performance at school and less tiredness, and so helping her understand that eating something for breakfast that's healthy will help her perform better in school might help this along a bit. Make sure she's getting enough sleep as well, because kids who, and we're talking now about the early and mid-adolescents who stay up late, getting up early for school then, they're still tired, they're not that interested in eating, so making sure you look at how much sleep she's getting. Is she getting adequate sleep from the night before? So that she can wake up enough to really eat the breakfast. And does she have enough time to get ready for school without having to gulp down a breakfast? I mean, there are kids who really need a little bit more time to sit and eat that food that you've prepared. So there are some things to look at here to see if you can adjust and get her to eat something for breakfast. And again, we don't want to force it, but have that discussion with her. All right. I make sure to keep junk food out of our home, but my daughter purchases lunch at school and sometimes vending machine snacks after school. What can I do to help her make good choices when she's out of the house? So this is one of the more interesting dilemmas we have as parents, because a lot of eating, especially with the older children, takes place outside of the house. I think that packing a snack in lieu of the vending choices or discussing the vending choices with her are directions to go. So some of the schools have started introducing healthier vending choices among the unhealthy ones, and some schools have gone to all healthy vending. So knowing what's in the vending machines is important. And then it may be that if there's nothing healthy, you may have to pack her an after-school snack instead of that, the vending choices. There are other situations that arise with children, for example, holidays and celebrations, especially with the older child. If you know there's going to be a lot of food offered, you have a discussion with the child before they go about what would be a strategy for going to that party, going to the buffet, getting only one plate of food, one piece of cake. And it's also good to debrief after an event. So if your child went to a party or went to a friend's house, you can ask, how did it go? How did you think about, were there healthy choices there? Were you able to make healthy choices? How did it go? In a very non-judgmental way. This is a learning experience. And having debriefed on it, maybe there weren't healthy choices. So you could say, could I send some with you when you go to that family's house? Maybe they did have some food there that they now think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have had all those potato chips or cookies that I ate. And you can discuss strategies about what would you do next time. So this is all a learning experience for your child. And I think approach that way, you can turn these situations where things may not have gone exactly as you wanted into something that's positive for your child. Next question is, my toddler seems to be a bottomless pit. Some days he'll eat as much as an adult if allowed. How do I know if it's a problem? And again, I think that your role as a parent is to provide healthy food in healthy portions. Toddlers are notorious for eating a lot of one food one day, ignoring it the next, hitting a meal and not being really hungry, eating all the food. I think that you need to step back and look at what the eating looks like over several days. If your toddler is eating as much as an adult every day, then you might want to ask yourself, am I serving that toddler adult portions when I need to be serving my toddler size portions? Is my child getting to a meal hungry because there's a big space between the snack and dinner? Do I have to adjust my dinner time? Is my child eating because he's at the end of a meal, but he's kind of bored and he's just picking up food when you can, if he's finished eating his portion, you can take the plates away and still sit at the dinner table and have, have some family time. So I think that it's taking a step back and trying to understand what's happening over time in terms of that toddler. Another question is, how healthy are energy bars and fruit snacks? And this is where you have to really become a label reader. The culprit here would be the amount of sugar in energy bars and fruit snacks. And so I think you're going for the lowest amount of sugar in those snacks. You're always trying to think, can I substitute an unprocessed food for a processed food? So if instead of a fruit snack, if I can give my child cut up fruit, better yet. There's a lot of fiber in that fruit. The sugar content is lower. The satiety or fullness value is higher. For the energy bar, looking at the combination of nutrients and asking yourself, could I give my child some granola mixed with fruit? Could we do a small salad? What could we do here that is less processed? But when that becomes the option, you're really looking for a spread of nutrients, protein and carbs, low sugar options here. We didn't talk about sugar-sweetened beverages, and I think it's really important to think about the impact of sugar-sweetened beverages on children's weight and intake. And we all know that in a sugar-sweetened beverages, the main ingredient really is sugar. There's not much nutrient value here for the child, and the recommendation is to, with a child struggling with weight, to really eliminate the sugar-sweetened beverages. And these would include, your classic sodas, fruit drinks, energy drinks, some of the coffee drinks with high amounts of sugar, and substitute water and low-fat milk. Fruit juice requirements have gone down. The Academy has a new policy on fruit juice. A glass of fruit juice for an older child is fine. But again, you're looking at water and low-fat milk as major beverages here for a child struggling with weight. So sugared beverages are a primary target, if you will, to look at sugar-sweetened beverage consumption if your child is struggling with weight. Okay. When I've needed to lose weight, I've done programs like Weight Watchers or Whole30. Are these programs or one like them appropriate for my teenage daughter? At this point, we really don't have options that are specifically designed for teenagers. So in the case of a parent wanting to lose weight and access a program, many times my recommendations have been that the parent go to the program, as long as it's a healthy program, and learn the techniques of structuring meals, creating well-balanced meals, learning about the physical activity requirements and translating that to helping the whole family. So I think that may be one way to access these programs. What if a family does not make enough money to eat healthy? And I think this is, in our country, we have about 16 or 17% of families with children have food insecurity. They don't have enough to eat. So this is a big problem for a lot of our families. We've asked our pediatricians to start asking families about food insecurity in the clinic to make that a routine so that we can help identify those families who have food insecurity if they have access to if they qualify for federal programs like school lunch, summer feeding programs, SNAP or WIC, to help them get enrolled, and for the pediatricians to know where the local food banks and food pantries are. So this is a really good question. We have the problem in this country, and now schools are aware of this, so we now have food pantries at schools, we have them at colleges, we have them at community colleges, and there are hospitals now that have food pantries. So making sure that people have access to food, asking about food insecurity is really important for all children. And if you're struggling to eat a healthy diet, even more important. I'm a grandparent who does not bring candy when I visit. Should I discuss this issue with parents? If so, how can this be done diplomatically? I think grandparents have a tremendous role to play here with the children. And I think that if you're a grandparent who occasionally wants to treat your grandchild, that's great. If you're a grandparent that's heavily involved in frequent caretaking or visiting, you really need to roll into the family's healthy eating plan. If you're a grandparent that wants to promote healthy eating in a young family who might not, you can be a powerful role model by role modeling healthy snacks, offering to prepare a healthy meal, picking restaurants when you treat the children and the family when you go out that serve healthy food and not fast food. So the role of grandparents is vitally important here for role modeling and also supporting the family in their journey to health. And I think that the rewards can vary across the spectrum. They don't have to be food rewards. They can be, I know grandparents who bring little books for the grandchildren. They take them on special outings. So as a grandparent, I think it's worth thinking, what kind of healthy role model are you for your young families? How can you help them get healthy? What can you contribute to the mix of getting healthy? One of the things we've certainly noticed is there's been a drop of cooking skills among our young families, and so many families don't cook their meals or don't have a lot of cooking skills. And so can you teach some cooking skills to the kids and cook with your grandchildren is an incredibly valuable contribution to lifelong healthy skills. So Sarah, I think we're about done with the questions here.
All right. Thank you again, Dr. Hassing, for all of this information. I just want to let you all know that this webinar will be archived, and if you registered for the webinar, we'll email you when it's ready to be viewed and shared with anyone who couldn't make it today. If you'd like to learn more about what we discussed today, you can check out Dr. Hassing's new book, Achieving a Healthy Weight for Your Child, an Action Plan for Families. By attending this webinar, you've been entered to win one of 10 free copies, so be sure to check your email later this week and see if you've won. But even if you haven't won, you can pick up a copy wherever books are sold. Thanks again, and we hope to see you all the next healthychildren.org webinar.